What separates us from the ordinary world is nothing more than ice, roughly 1 meter thick. The water here is so pure, and the ice itself is transparent to such an extent that this barrier seems to be immaterial. In fact, there is nothing as insurmountable. It is under this frozen armor that locks the Great Lake, where you can dive for hours. Odors, sounds, the air, our whole previous life seems left behind somewhere. It appears as remote as space, almost unreal. The only evidence proving our upper world still exists are the rays of hibernal sun, barely penetrating the ice. The mere thought of being absolutely powerless against this solid, transparent stratum, the front line between two worlds, sends a shiver down the spine. This is what Baikal is like, a separate reality, changing one's worldview and self-perception. On this spot, the bottom is right here. The deepest part of Baikal, 1,042 meters, lies not far off though. The depth is unbelievable. The rest of the world's lakes are much shallower. Under the Baikal ice, there exists a world with its own life. This curious crustacean is called a sandhopper. With a shell that looks like an extraterrestrial being, the sandhopper is an important part of Baikal's ecology. Millions of these tiny creatures help to decompose dead organic matter on the lake's bottom. Somewhere here among these ice hummocks, we find one of the planet's most stunning animals, the Baikal freshwater seal. Seals and their seal cubs have been hunted and mercilessly slaughtered for years. The total extermination of these seals has been successfully prevented. At the present time, their population numbers approximately 100,000. Despite this fact, it is practically impossible to come across a seal underwater. Where and behind which ice floes are they hiding? Or perhaps, having noticed us, they may have dived deep downwards. It is well known that the Baikal seals are able to dive to a depth of up to 200 meters. The only thing that links us to the upper world is an ice hole drilled for diving. Russian divers call it a mina. Around the hole, there is a thick layer of ice. Our route to the Baikal ice lies across Alkhon, the biggest island on Baikal. Alkhon is a legendary location. In summertime, it is packed with tourists, but now there is only the freezing silence of winter. Our dream to swim alongside a seal cub began on the islands of the Ushkan archipelago. The name of these islands is derived from the word Ushkan. This was an earlier name for hares in Siberia, although the animals have never been found on these islands. The name was brought from the north of Russia, where the waters of the Arctic seas are inhabited by large bearded seals called square flippers. This species is also known as the sea hare. The colonists from the north nicknamed the islands of Ushkan because of the Baikal seal, which had long ago chosen this particular archipelago as its habitat. How the marine animal found itself in the fresh waters of Baikal remains a mystery so far. One explanation states that they reached Baikal from the Arctic Ocean through the river system during the Ice Age. One can spend hours observing them basking on the rocks, squinting under the sun, and stroking each other with their flippers. However, seeing the seals here and encountering them underwater are two completely different things. Most attempts at filming the Baikal seal or its cubs underwater have been fruitless until now. They are extremely cautious and fearful of humans. While it is not completely impossible, it is very difficult to catch a mature seal in the lens. But capturing a seal cub on film is a real challenge. We have already been told that the easiest way would be to buy a baby seal from poachers, put it in a playpen to ensure it doesn't escape, and then keep on recording as much as you like. Meanwhile, the seal cub is left doomed to die afterwards. This is because it is extremely difficult to comply with necessary conditions, such as avoiding a premature separation from the mother seal and managing to release it in time. The mother would wait for her baby for a while, some 2 hours at most. Afterwards, the seal cub remains alone, and the chances of survival in the wild are close to zero. We'd love to film a seal cub, but this way is not our style. We are embarking on the ice from a wharf in the fishing village of Hugir. The familiar graveyard of outmoded fishing schooners looks especially surrealistic in winter. Our team is a small group of divers from Moscow and Irkutsk. One of its members is photographer and naturalist Olga Kamenskaya. Olga has been filming Baikal underwater for a long time. Although her dream to take a photo of a baby seal under the ice has not been fulfilled yet. Our road leads to the north of Ahon to Cape Khaboy, and then later onto Baikal's eastern side. At first glance, the ice seems to be as smooth as glass. A typical feature of ice roads here is the pronounced inflation of the snow. The car is bouncing over it as if on a springboard. It often happens that driving in a straight line is hindered by fissures and cracks, numerous ice blocks and snowdrifts. Experienced drivers don't fasten their seatbelts on this stretch of road, so as to have time to jump out of the car if need be. Here is one such crack, not large in appearance. This is where its perilous nature is concealed. At its edges, the ice can turn out to be thin, and it can take only a few moments for a car to sink under the ice. This is why one needs to follow instructions strictly when crossing cracks, under no circumstances relying on the off chance. A German scientist who had the opportunity to visit a scientific camp set up on the Baikal ice tried to convince us that this ice was alive. He would often notice his tent and bed swaying slightly to and fro at night, as if in an earth tremor. And indeed, the delusive silence harbors its own internal respiration and movement. Some peculiar processes must undoubtedly take place here. Physicists know that huge masses of snow have a tendency to first shrink and then swell again. But what a great force is needed to transform this stratum of frozen water into huge ice blocks and winter's detritus. No artisan, however talented, could ever equal the art of nature. Fine sculptures and buildings are often described as music in stone. Here, amidst the ice's most beautiful and melodious music, an otherworldly and supernatural grandeur reigns. These icy sculptures are recreated every single winter. The lakeside rocks are decorated with ice splashes sparkling in the sun, whereas the grottos are full of branches of icicles and ice-bound columns. Transparent ice and glaring ice hummocks are especially impressive in the spring, just like they are now. After the thaw and the strong wind which blows away the snow, the ice is as thoroughly polished as the most luxurious parquet floor. Yet the greatest mystery unfolds in late winter or at the very beginning of spring, when the Baikal seals give birth to their cubs on the ice under a thick layer of winter-bound snow. Their fine white fur was the reason for their destruction on Baikal and in the White Sea, at many places where the seals breed. In April, the seals' habitats on Baikal literally turn into maternity hospitals. However, it is impossible to remain concealed and witness the baby's birth. The females would sniff danger and rescue their cubs from the den. However, watching already born seal cubs is fairly possible. This is what we're counting on. Taking a glance at a seal cub without inflicting any harm is only possible now, in early April. Before this, the dens are safely covered with snow, and grubbing them out would irrevocably turn a seal cub into easy prey for ravens and poachers. Later on, any move onto the gradually melting ice becomes perilous. From the outside, a seal's den looks very much like an ordinary snowdrift. Seal cubs live there without going outside until the April warmth melts the roof. What previously used to be a den consists now of a polynia, sometimes so large that a car could easily fall through it. Gamekeepers, the top experts on seals, help us find a den. The polynia over there is the den itself. By now the roof has melted and collapsed. It's a miracle. We've been really lucky. The tiny creature is frightened, but looks at us humans with curiosity. This seal cub is seeing humans for the first time, unaware what to expect from this encounter. He has already started to cast off his first coat, which makes the fur slightly greyish. These babies grow up fast, and very soon he will become a big black seal, just like the ones we saw on the Ushkan Islands. We're getting acquainted. The seal cub turns out to be surprisingly sociable. About half an hour later, he nuzzles up peacefully against our boots and seeks shelter from the sun and wind in our down-padded coats. To gain the baby's trust, all you have to do is lie down beside it. Tall figures are scary for the cub.
Давай договоримся с тобой. Ты хороший. Знаешь?
We're not willing to leave this cute chap, but we haven't got much time left. Now we are guests in his home, and we have to leave in time, while the mother is still waiting somewhere nearby or underwater. 2 hours only seems like a long enough time. We need to dig out an ice hole for our dive to make our dream of getting video of a seal under the ice come true. As for the baby seal, he's going to be released back into its home Polynia. We are pondering our plan. While the ice hole is being dug, we are setting up a playpen to prevent him from crawling away. How naive. Digging into 1 meter thick ice can cost you a good hour's work. We're in a hurry, There's no time for a breather. The ice is extremely solid. We're sawing out square blocks, knocking them out, and keeping on doing so until we reach the very bottom. Then we leave a layer of a couple of centimeters. One sharp blow, and in seconds, nearly 2 cubic meters of water pours in. The ice hole is ready. The den is around 15 meters away. We were told we would manage to shoot one single frame when we released the seal into the water. One stroke of the flippers, and that would be it. The swimmer would vanish in the depths. That's the reason why we are all getting ready and taking our positions underwater beforehand. The seal cub is brought nearer to the den. We count to 10 and let it go. But the youngster does not hurry at all. It looks like he's feeling fine in the sun and does not want to go anywhere. The gamekeeper brings him closer to the den, releases him, and even gives him a gentle nudge. All in vain. The water is wet and cold, while the sun is shining warmly overhead. We're pushing him slightly towards his native den. Finally, he reluctantly glides down into the water, swims a circle on the surface, and tries to climb up back to us. Here is some unique film from newsreels of the 1940s taken on Lake Baikal. Seals were slaughtered for their fur and fat, the babies for their fur. A whole seal-based industry was run for this purpose. Even a great many scientific publications on the Baikal seals strove to provide recommendations on efficient game shooting. Speaking bluntly, how to kill them best.
Озеро Байкал. Лед здесь обычно держится до конца мая. Используя ледяной покров, можно совсем близко подобраться к обитающим здесь пугливым и чутким нерпам.
60 years ago, seals were not as timid. This is how one of the first ever videos featuring the seals and their cubs on the Baikal ice was made. Now it is simply impossible to see whole families of Baikal seals lying cozily on the April ice. Adult specimens can smell humans from a mile away and immediately dive into the deep. Seals and their cubs were not only killed, but also captured in droves to be later transported to zoos and dolphinariums.
Охотники пришли сюда, чтобы отловить 25 нерп для советских и зарубежных зоопарков.
Nevertheless, the procedure can be hardly called a capture. Clumsy and helpless on solid ground, the baby seals can neither resist nor escape, so they become easy prey. Little has changed. Despite the ban on hunting endangered species, people still keep killing them for their entertainment and their whims, leaving them no right to enjoy life in the wild.
Теперь в дорогу к новому месту жительства.
Да ты чё не прыгаешь-то?
Our seal cub treats us in a very friendly way. He does not know that a two-legged species may bring pain and death. We dare to hope that this tiny thing will never have to face that. Innate curiosity ultimately prevails over reluctance to dive into the water. The baby seal, amused by a great deal of strange creatures lurking around, finally decides to get closer. It is striking. We were sure that once reunited with his natural element, he would instantly vanish. Hardly. For several minutes, the seal cub has been joyfully splashing around us, posing and putting his muzzle against our masks. Interestingly enough, he keeps on messing about with those he had got acquainted with earlier on the surface. At last, having probably decided that he was fed up with posing as our hero, he slowly and graciously disappeared into the abyss. Now our task is to get to the surface as soon as possible, collect all the equipment, and move away from the location to let the seal cub and his mother enjoy their den alone. We're heading to the ice hole. Up there it is spring, yet typically Baikal-like. The same silence and icebound frost reign underwater, or so it appears at first sight. In fact, April makes advances here as well. Its first sign is the slowly melting snow. The same thing happens with the ice on the surface, where it is melted by the April sun and wind. A long journey is ahead. Ice is not that trustworthy in April, so we must make the decision to go home on board a kivos, an air-cushioned boat. Winter season is in decline. The ice will soon be replaced by waves, and instead of cars, there will be boats on its surface. But now life is taking its normal course under these ice hummocks. The Baikal seal cubs are learning to hold their breath, dive, and hunt food. We're taking the photos we have dreamt about for so long. These include stunning impressions from the household that received us so welcomingly. The main thing is to leave their hospitable hearth without any delay, so as not to shatter the peace and quiet of the hosts.